What's up, world? Thanks for tuning in. This copper color tie. Man, Dane Calloway just dropped a banger video on YouTube today. If you don't know who Dane Calloway is, you need to know who Dane Calloway is. He has definitely inspired me and many others along this journey. So I will go ahead and post a picture up of the name of the video so you can go ahead and check it out. I highly recommend you checking out this brilliant video, another brilliant video out of many more brilliant videos Dane Calloway has put together. So definitely much love, much respect, much props to Dane Calloway. Definitely check him out. So in this video that I felt the need to elaborate or emphasize on some of the information that Dane Calloway mentions, you will see that Martin Luther King was 100% against us melanated people calling ourselves black. He was opposed to it, okay? And you will see who we melanated people are really supporting when we call ourselves black. So thanks for tuning in. Enjoy.
Churchill Carmichael was born June 29th, 1941, in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Then he immigrated to the U.S. in 1952 at the age of 11, where he briefly resided in Harlem, New York, with both of his parents until they moved to Van Ness in East Bronx, New York, which was predominantly an Italian and Jewish immigrant neighborhood at that time. And he was also determined to be the very first person to popularize the phrase Black Power on national media by sticking to Dr. King's side in particular whenever the media is present. And he casually speaks in response to Dr. King on most occasions, standing against Dr. King's beliefs, pledges, opinions, and his overall agenda. Upon close examination of Dr. King's facial expression, we can determine that Stokely was upsetting him, but Dr. King still managed to not lose focus.
What do you mean when you shout Black Power to these people back here?
I mean that they are oppressed because they are black, and their rallying cry must be Black Power, so that they can use that to ensure justice for themselves.
I feel that while believing firmly that power is necessary, that it would be difficult for me to use the phrase Black Power because of the connotative meaning that it has for many people and the feeling that this may represent a desire to rise from a position of disadvantage to one of advantage, thereby subverting justice.
It's important to understand the transition with SNCC. When Stokely became the chairman of SNCC, he had a different approach. He'd not been trained in nonviolence, and he believed in self-defense. And he was somewhat influenced by, Malcolm X, okay, who talked about that, and also Adam Clayton Powell. Adam Clayton Powell talked about Black Power even before Stokely and others.
And it was amazing to me how after long walks he would listen to them vent, listen to all of us vent, and it was wonderful to be a fly on the wall with great patience. And I remember him often saying, Stokely, is it that bad? Is it that bad? But he listened, and that was in Black Power first. Began to emerge, and I will never forget Dr. King's face when in Greenwood we had a rally, and Willie Ricks got up and started saying Black Power. He looked like the most stricken man, but that was the first real breach in the nonviolence commitment.
Stokely Carmichael, John Hewlett, William Ricks, and other SNCC members created a brand new independent political party known as the Black Panther Party in March of 1965. Not to be confused with Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale's Black Panther Party that was adopted a year or two later by SNCC. This initial Black Panther Party was officially known as the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, or the LCFO for short. So, during the James Meredith precedent, Stokely Carmichael and William Ricks and other members of SNCC and the Black Panther Party were met face to face with the golden opportunity of a lifetime, which was to be able to finally flip the narrative from Dr. King's nonviolent approach with Freedom Now to Stokely Carmichael's borrowed slogan, Black Power. While James Meredith was in the hospital, Stokely Carmichael met with Martin Luther King Jr., Floyd McKissick, and others, where they vowed to continue Meredith's march. And so, the one-man march then became the March Against Fear. Having gained the media attention by aligning himself with Dr. King publicly during the march, just 10 days after the James Meredith precedent, on June 16, 1966, Stokely Carmichael purposely got himself arrested by police for trespassing on private property of the university. It was said that after immediately upon being released from police custody hours later, Stokely was instructed by William Ricks to give his Black Power speech in front of young students and the press in Greenwood, Mississippi, where he was quoted stating the following: "This is the 27th time I have been arrested, and I ain't going to jail no more. The only way we gonna stop them white men from whooping us is to take over. What we gotta start saying now is Black Power."
Use the term Black Power. SNCC had already decided this before the march. That must be properly understood. We decided to use the march for an education purpose. Number one, we wanted to push strongly our struggle against the war in Vietnam. So if people look clearly at the Meredith March, you will see anti-Vietnam propping up here. King wasn't using it then, but you will see this is one of the areas where we started to hit him with it seriously. Our march was to put strong nationalism in, to have direct leadership from us, and of course, to throw out Black Power for the mass of the people. Now, I myself have been in Greenwood, Mississippi since early '60. I'd worked in the project there, and when head of the 2nd Congressional District, this was our base. So I spent time in the jail in Greenwood so many times. The police knew me, the police chief knew me, everyone in the town knew me. So we decided Greenwood, it was SNCC's strongest base in the Delta. We couldn't go wrong. Unfortunately for the police, we went to set up some tents there, and the police decided to arrest me. Okay, so before I was arrested, we were discussing Greenwood. This is where we will launch Black Power. So when I got arrested, Ricks was on the side there when the police said, "Let them arrest you. We'll get you out of jail, and you come out and make the speech tonight." And he disappeared. Well, you know how Ricks speaks. So anyway, I went to jail. But I was brought out, and when I was released, it was at night. The speech was going on, and when I came to the speech, I was in line. Ricks came back. He said, "We have everything prepared. We're ready for Black Power. We've spoke about it all day. We've primed up the people." And luckily for us, our biggest problem was Martin Luther King, because I knew that once Black Power was said, Martin Luther King would have to come, not fight against it, but with his best try to give reasonings to water it down. But luckily for us, the night in Greenwood, King had to go to do a taped television thing, I think, for Meet the Press. So he had to go to Memphis. So he was not there the night in Greenwood. Ricks had everybody primed. He said, "Just get to your speech. We're going against freedom now. We're going for Black Power. Don't hit too much on freedom now, but hit the need for power." So we built up on the need for power. And just when I got there, before I got it, Ricks was there saying, "Hit him now, hit him now." And I kept saying, "Give me time, give me time." When we finally got it, we dropped it, Black Power. Of course, they had been primed, and they responded immediately. But I myself, to be honest, I didn't expect that enthusiastic response, you know? And the enthusiastic response obviously not only shocked me, but gave me more energy to carry it on further. By the time we got down that night, SCLC was running around everywhere. We knew it was finished. We had made our victory. They could not bring it back. It was over.
Many people were opposed to Stokely's motives and agendas, calling him radical and militant. In fact, SNCC itself was established under the principles of nonviolence. by so-called blacks and so-called whites. And that fact becomes quite obvious when taking a look at SNCC's logo alone. But once Stokely gained control over SNCC as the chairman, the once Jamaican immigrant that lived amongst the whites during his childhood began purging all of SNCC's non-colored members one by one.
The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that had been on the front line, the shock troops of the Civil Rights Movement, led by a coalition of young white and black students, North and South. Stokely Carmichael gets control of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating, and literally does what I call the Soviet Union's done. He purges the organization of all white people, all white leaders, and to give a damn how dedicated you were. If you were white and you were in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee when Stokely Carmichael came in, he said, you go back and work in your community. We want to have total control, black power. That was a very destructive move, and it had consequences that rippled throughout the movement.
Stokely set out to raise awareness of wanting so-called black power by appearing in various meetings where the press were present and by soliciting door to door, enticing the poor people residing in Mississippi to go register and vote. Being just a year older in age than Stokely Carmichael, SCLC's staff leader, Bernard Lafayette, shares a very important message concerning the term black itself and how many people were opposed to its usage amongst the so-called Negroes during that time period.
When I was growing up, to call a person of color like myself or others black was considered derogatory. That's just a fact. You know, you call somebody black, those were fighting words. Those were fighting words.
So what was going on here was that the college students were manipulated by Stokely Carmichael and many of his closest colleagues to believe that the use of the term black is highlighting their group of people by way of their skin complexions, inadvertently grouping themselves into a mental status structure that not only bears negative connotation, but more importantly, it also makes them null and void or non-existent when it comes to law of the American government.
I feel that while believing firmly that power is necessary, that it would be difficult for me to use the phrase black power because of the connotative meaning that it has for many people.
The majority of the people that were associated with campaigning black power to these students did not relate to any struggles with poverty and or direct racial discrimination personally. So this exposes why someone needed to negate Dr. King's Freedom Now movement and transition the public's attention to a black power campaign, revealing that the campaign's method was politically used for the purpose to mentally and emotionally target only the Nijis of Turtle Island for self-degradation and self-condemnation, which makes things even deeper. Because we can now determine without a doubt that Stokely and his fellow colleagues were set to breach the Niji civil rights movement that was currently underway, steering the main attention away from unity, human rights, and nonviolence.
So now you see and now you know that Martin Luther King did not agree with us melanated people calling ourselves black, because he knew the meaning behind the terminology black was not good. That's why he was 100% opposed and against to us melanated people calling ourselves black. So people talk so highly about Martin Luther King, but they don't ever say anything about how Martin Luther King did not agree with the melanated people calling ourselves black. He would probably be turning over in his grave if he found out we was calling ourselves black. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Dane Calloway, for sharing. I hope you guys enjoyed. Much love to you guys all. This is Copper Color Tie. Holla back.